Well, as the October 10th gubernatorial election in Ondo State draws closer, the electorates are at the point where their minds are almost made up on the candidate of their choice at the polls. But joining us now to tell us why a technocrat and not a politician is fit for the position of Ondo State governor and why he believes he's going to emerge victorious is the African Democratic Congress candidate OLUWASEYI ADEDAPO ADELEGAN. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. I hope you can hear me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, fantastic. Well,
yes,
let's get into it. You've said that you believe that at this point, you think a technocrat and not a politician is the best thing for Ondo State, and you believe that you are the man for that job. Tell us why.
Thank you very much, Femi. First and foremost, considering the global economic situation and the precarious economic situation of the country, and given the state of Ondo State as one of the richest endowed states in terms of natural resources, its even geographical location as the hub of business in the country, we have no business with poverty. Hence, these are extraordinary times that require extraordinary skills of capacity, of competence and compassion to dimension these advantages and transform them into prosperity for our people. Hence, my desire to become the governor of Ondo State, to lend my own expertise, experience, exposure, as well as contacts and network to bring in the required capacity, the required investment, and ensure that we have an economy that is sustainable, that provides jobs for our people, that provides income for the government to be able to provide the necessary social amenities that are critical, particularly in the COVID-19 era.
Lovely. Well, you've given us a very circular answer there. I wanted to tackle perhaps a separate part of that. As it stands now, Nigeria is another country that seems to be identified along its political lines with a two-party system. You obviously are not a candidate for the All Progressive Congress or the People's Democratic Party. Do you think that you have enough to break that system up, especially since if we look at Ondo State and the fact that you have a governor and a vice governor whose personal issues have now spilled out into people's business? You've got a deputy governor who's absconded from one party to the other. Do you think that this gives way for you and your party to finally break the two-party system that has dominated Nigerian politics?
Well, the aspect of domination of Nigerian politics itself is something that needs to be corrected. The two parties, the PDP and the APC, if you put them on a scale, in terms of delivery of good governance and democratic dividends to our people, they have come short. Therefore, we need new voices, we need new perspective, we need new capacity. Nigeria is a great country. However, the two parties have created a system where knowledge and capacity is difficult to access. Our leadership emergence strategy has been stratified along the lines of godfatherism, money politics, and that we have to break. Now, if we do not take the attempt to come out and show up and tell our people the new narrative, the new capacity, and what is global trends, then we're going to shortfall. So the reality is that, yes, I joined the politics through the APC, but the moment the indirect primary was granted, our current governor, that was a carte blanche. And most of the people that competed with him, with myself, agreed to stay within APC, and I respect their choice. But I have a mission, a vision, not an ambition. I had a message, and I needed a platform to present that message to the people of Ondo State. And it is their inalienable right every 4 years to listen to all shades of perspective, to listen to new ideas and capacity, and then make their choice. Hence, I'm in ADC.
All right, Mr. Adelegan, I would like to take you up on, before we come into Ondo State proper, as a politician, all right, witnessing what happened in Ondo State, all the dramas, all the intrigues, and the eventual outcome. What's your perspective? You've just mentioned things about godfatherism. What's your perspective towards what transpired in Edo State, because as we're building up to Ondo State, and also more importantly, in terms of INEC, how did you think they fared in the elections in Edo State?
Let me start with INEC. I think that we must give kudos to INEC, particularly its chairman and the officials of INEC. They've spoken to their determination to ensure we have a free and fair election, and the Edo State election give them an opportunity to prove that. And I think to a large extent, they have proven that. Secondly, what we have in Edo State is victory for the people of Edo State, not Godwin Obaseki. Victory for a new level of politicking in the country that speaks to competence and capacity. Because the reality of our situation in the country, particularly with subnationals, is that there is a need for capacity at the subnational level. Governors that are experienced and exposed, not politically alone, but in terms of governance, because it's we've had too much of politicking in our system. We now need to enthrone governance in all the subnational states. And I think Godwin Obaseki has demonstrated that even without Godfather, even without the necessary political capacity that we always attribute to governance, with performance, economic performance, with programs that uplift the lives of the people, that give hope for our boys, our girls, our children in school, that they will come out and find jobs, and poverty will be a thing of the past. So I think Edo's victory for Godwin Obaseki was a victory for economic transformation, for capacity, for competence, and for governance, rather than politics.
If I didn't know better, I would have thought you were a member of the PDP. I was eulogizing what happened in Edo State. But
Thank you so much. You know, if we stay on the topic of Edo for a second, there was so much infighting, so much conflict in the run-up to the election. You almost forgot that the people are who matters. And in addition to that, a certain population of the people, we spoke so much about Obaseki, of course, Ize-Iyamu, Adams Oshiomhole, and we forgot to mention any type of women. It felt as though women being included in positions of power hasn't been adequately represented if we use the Edo State election as an example. If we look to you, we see that you have a woman on your ticket running for your own running to be your own lieutenant governor. Why was that important to you?
Well, first of all, the African Democratic Congress, as a policy, insists that a significant percentage of our political office holders must be women. In Ondo State, for example, our chairman of our party is a woman, my deputy governor is a woman, and even in Edo State, the ADC gubernatorial candidate is a woman. We are the only party in Ondo State that has a woman as deputy governor. And that confirms our understanding that the issues of women are critical to society building and nation building. Our women, particularly in Ondo State, bear the brunt of our situation, particularly our lack of an economy. They are the ones that worry very much about livelihoods and lives, the school fees of their children, in a situation where many of our students are at home, they are able to pay the school fees. We have offered that by the grace of God, when we come into power, we will offer student loans to our tertiary education students, particularly those that are getting admission in sciences, technology, engineering, medicine, mathematics, and agriculture. We believe that the fastest route from poverty to prosperity is education. So our women are the center of all that has to do with the education of their children, with the livelihood of their families, and in a situation where there are no jobs. In those state economy, we have no jobs, 80% unemployment. How do women, even in the marketplace, get their goods sold? When their salaries are hold for 7 months, in some instances, teachers are not motivated, a lot of issues. And you can't blame all of it on a particular person or a governor. It's simply the absence of a viable economy. We have not taken advantage of our position as the gateway of economic in the country.
All right, Mr. Adelagan,
we have not put in the necessary infrastructure and so on and so forth.
Hold your thoughts on what you're talking about, women and their importance to governance. Let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll still continue the discussion with you. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the morning show on Arise News. We're still joined by the African Democratic Congress candidate OLUWASEYI ADEDAPO ADELEGAN, who joins us from Ondo State. Thank you for staying with us, sir. I know that before we went to break there, you were talking about how important women are to your vision for Ondo State. The fact that you have Olaitan Oladeyinde as your deputy governor is just one example of the many women in positions of power over there for you. But if we were to now move on to your ideas for revolutionizing or kickstarting Ondo's economy, if we were to focus on agriculture for a second, we know that Ondo is blessed with a lot of agricultural riches, cocoa being one of them. In fact, I do believe that Ondo is the leader in terms of growing cocoa here in Nigeria. We've been speaking about agriculture a lot this week. We know that we had the Agriculture Summit Africa earlier on this week, and a lot of the conversation there was about how we need to use public sector support to privatize a lot of agriculture, turn it into a business so that many people can not only reap the benefits of harvests or their involvement in the agricultural sector, but in fact, for Nigeria as a whole to become an agricultural power, use their cash crops to actually bring money in. What plans do you have for agriculture in Ondo State?
Many thanks, Femi. First and foremost, we recognize agriculture as one of the fastest job-creating industry that we need to develop. Hitherto, we've based our focus on subsistence farming. And we need to now move to industrial farming. Our plan is that, given that Ondo State is surrounded by 6 states, Lagos, Ogun, Edo, Osun, Ekiti, and Kogi, with a total population of about 44.5 million, added to the population of Ondo State, it means that Ondo State is a 4.5 million economy with a 50 million market. Now, given also the fact that each of these states, the borders of these states with Ondo State is about 30 to 60 minutes, we've decided that we will develop an agricultural economic zone in each of these 6 borders, focused on about 1,000 to 2,000 hectares with housing, about 1,000 housing units built with wood, not with cement, because we recognize the fact that we need to provide cheap housing, affordable, comfortable housing for our youths, because they will be the ones who are going to drive into these areas, and then processing factories. So what we want to do is to have each of our cash crops, cocoa, palm kernel, cassava, banana, teak, and so on, which each of these economic zones focused on one cash crops and other secondary crops. Now, the interesting thing is that we will need to glamorize agriculture. We will need to convince parents and our children and our youth that actually the farmer is the richest in the world. Apart from technology entrepreneurs, farmers are the richest all over the world. I was telling some youth group a couple of days ago that the new Colina Rolls-Royce that has just been developed by Rolls-Royce Motors, that's probably the most expensive Jeep in the world, it was designed for farmers who wanted to drive their Rolls-Royce into their farms. So we need to change the negative perception that farming is poverty-related. So when we glamorize it with a huge public enlightenment program, so we can draw in a lot of our youths, unemployed youths, into the agricultural value chain. When I mean value chain, I don't mean just farming. I mean also the harvesting, the transportation, the preservation, and the processing for export of agricultural products. So we want to drive them through this campaign into our farm economic zones, offer them 1,000 to 2,000 hectares, and then pre-buy the output for the next 3 years, so that they will be encouraged, knowing that there's economic value in going to agriculture. As governments, we have provided them the basic entry strategy and then processing plants, as well as housing. So we create a new community of farmers, smart city, broadband, and all of the things that youth look for. So we can then immediately begin to get into farming, not only graduates of agriculture, but of engineering, of technology, of marketing, of logistics and transport. And that is the vision. To the extent that agric is a focus, we also want to use Ore, which is one of the major towns in Ondo State, as our own Chicago. Ore, if you notice, has almost 10 billion naira worth of goods coming from Lagos and the ports into the south-south and the southeast. Currently, our state does not generate any economic benefit other than the restaurants that dot the nooks and crannies of Ore. We're not satisfied with that. We want to turn Ore to Chicago, a hub where you can have logistics, bonded warehouses for the goods that are transversing from Lagos into the south-south-southeast. By the time they spend a day or two in Ore, before the customers from the South and Southeast pick them up, Ondo State will have derived at least about 5 to 10% economic value. And then within a couple of years, considering the fact that the pipeline from the Escravos that brings gas into Shagamu, into Ibeshe, into Agbara, into Ikeja and Apapa for industrialization, passes through Ore. Our intention is to push gas into Omotosho power plants and these warehouses and turn them to factories. So basically, agriculture is at the center of our economic transformation policy, but also our location. Ondo State geography is at the center of economic trade between the West and the South is South-South on the one hand, and the West and the North on the other hand. And this time around, we intend to take advantage of the billions of goods that passes and transverse our geography going forward.
All right, Mr. Adelagan, let me take you up on just two issues quickly. Number one is the fact that we know that 17 political parties, according to INEC, are actually fielding candidates for this particular election. First of all, talks about violence is beginning to spring up once again, and just like we actually saw leading up to the Edo State gubernatorial elections. Talk to us about the space of violence that has actually characterized politicking in this modern democracy, and more importantly, a lot of people would say that the odds are stacked against you, understanding that they are not taking your ticket a little bit seriously, being that they are looking at Agbola Ajayi or the People's Democratic candidates, Tayo Jegede, and also the incumbent talking about Akeredolu. They are saying that maybe those are the three front runners, and that maybe you might just be falling behind the rest of them.
Well, let me first of all talk about Togri and politics in Nigeria. You know, a lot of our political commentators always speak about the coming revolution and the fact that given the state of our states, in good time, the people will rise up and there will be. I think the revolution has started. And I think the Togri that you see in our politics is a sign that the people themselves are not happy with the outcome. A lot of these guys that are being used are hungry, they are unemployed, they are frustrated. And like I said, we cannot get Togri out of our politics until we clean our politics, until we bring in capacity and governance into politics. Now, we may look like the odds out of the race. We may look like the least capable in terms of our capability to raise the necessary capital and the wherewithal for politics. But the truth of the matter is that we all need to step in now. These are difficult and extraordinary times. If knowledge continues to sit and ignorance stepping forward to rule, we're all going to be the worst for it. We don't want this country to become Rwanda or Somalia. Knowledge must step out. In other climes, it is capacity and knowledge that lead society. If the elite sit down and assume it's too dangerous, we can't come out, it's not worth it, who is going to bail the cat? No society grows. I mean, Abraham Lincoln or somebody said it, when you allow fools to rule, you are a fool. So I'm not concerned about the power of any political party or any candidate. We are all equal before the law. And in Ondo State particularly, our people are not going to vote for parties. They are going to vote for capacity. They have listened to all of us. Their back is on the wall. These are existential elections. It's about the future of their children. It's about employability. It's about lives and livelihood. It's not about personal aggrandizement. So I refuse to accept the fact that there are some leading candidates. Yes, they may have more money, they may have more experience in politicking, they may have even the wherewithal to coerce people into voting for them. But for once, we have sent out the message and our people have heard that this is not about me, this is about their children and their future. Now, a people must also live with the consequences of their choices. If people deserve the government they're voting, we have also done voters' education, that if you do not vote capacity, you have to live with incompetence. And you have to accept it. Our job as elites is to present alternative agendas.
I think that would be a good place for us to stop you there, Mr. Adelagan. But please do, there is no need to worry. We will come back to you for another segment. It is time for us to take a short break. And once again, once we return, we will be joined by this candidate. Please do stay with us.
You're still watching the morning show here on the Rise News. We still have the candidates of the ADP here with us discussing the Ondo State elections that will be coming up next month. And we still have Mr. OLUWASEYI ADEDAPO with us here. And before we went, we were talking about the fact that your candidacy running for the elections in October might have been seen as second-class candidates on the back of those fielded by the Zenith Party, the People's Democratic Party, and also the ruling APC.
Yes, I did say that that is not absolutely correct. Yes, the APC, the PDP, ZLP are equal parties to the African Democratic Congress. You may say that they're older parties. They probably have more political clout. But I've said that this election is also beyond politics. It's about governance.
No, you mentioned that, and permit me to actually budge by saying that these factors, these cardinals you've just mentioned, is what has won seats, is what has won elections for different parties in Nigeria. And the political climate we see today, some of these things you're mentioning are the things that actually sway votes to different parties. So if you are probably pushing them and casting them aside, is that not a little bit? Is that not a little bit arrogant?
I haven't casted them aside. I've only said that in the eyes of the law, every political party is equal. Number two, that in Ondo State, our politics is a bit peculiar. Our people are very decisive people. We don't vote in governors in Ondo State, we vote out governors. And then some party is available to take advantage. A couple of years down the line, Labour Party, an absolutely unknown party, within 3 months established its place and made a governor in Ondo State. That governor was the first governor in Ondo State to have 2 terms, Olusegun Mimiko. Our people are very emotive and very sensitive. Once they've said no to a particular governor or a particular party, they are ready to move. And then when they did this, there was PDP, there was AD, and they voted for Labour. So a revolution is about to happen. And I have no illusions about the fact that we are working against a powerful structure in these parties. But because of the time, these are existential times. These are extraordinary times. These are difficult times for our people. The economy is about 60% eroded. We have 80% unemployment in our state. There are no jobs. Salaries are unpaid. The civil servants are unhappy. The teachers are unhappy. Students are home. They can't pay school fees. And look, it's not about the party anymore. It's about capacity. People will collect inducement and vote their conscience. Because we have done a lot of voters' enlightenment to let them know that it is your vote. You are the government. You have the capacity every 4 years to change the government. There was ACN, there was AD, before APC, there was CMPP, there was CPC, there was AMPP. Parties have existed before APC and PDP. So politics is an imagined, transition, is an evolution. Tomorrow, the ADC could merge with another party and another formation emerges. For 2023, there are discussions around the formation of another mega party. So we cannot say a party, because there's one election, must continue to win an election, even if it's not performing. What has the APC done in Ondo State in the last 4 years? It has tried its best, but the best is not good enough. We're in a period that requires economic transformation, because without an economy, we have no polity. The issue of politics without economy is an aberration. We need to ensure that our politics is rounded up, is built around economic transformation and sustainability. Hence, our confidence that even as a young party, we have the program, we have the right soundbite, we have the right programs and the right capacity to transform Ondo State. And we've told them, it is your choice. On October 10, go out there and make your choice and be ready to live with the consequences of your choice.
Well, thank you very much. In the earlier part of our discussion, you said that you believe the revolution has already started and that knowledge must step out. And when you talk about your poverty to prosperity pipeline, I wonder how important education is to that, and the fact that a lot of people are priced out of prosperity because they don't have the funds, they don't have those privileges. So where you have an idea that you don't want to leave any Ondo person left, you don't want to have any person left behind, when it comes to education, what plans do you have to make sure that that is not the case, that people are not priced out of their own future?
Thank you very much, Femi. The current state of education in the state is in a parlor state. We have overcrowded classrooms. We have teachers to almost 300 students. We have not employed new teachers in the last 10, 15 years in Ondo State. The infrastructure of educational schools are mostly dilapidated and unequipped. What we've decided to do is to have a total revolution in our education. First, to move our curriculum to align with the concept of the 21st century, which is technology-based. The 21st century is a robotic century. It's a technology-based century. We need to change our education and empower teachers, train teachers, upskill them, to be able to deliver, lectures and training, particularly in technology. Number two, equip our schools. We don't have to even build new ones. We have enough schools in Ondo State. We need to allocate a higher percentage of investment into education and encourage private sector investment in education. Then thirdly, we need to ensure that our tertiary institutions and vocational training centers are skewed towards skills that are relevant to job in the 21st century. As a government that is determined to industrialize Ondo State, we know that without the requisite skills and labor, we will not be able to attract the investment that is required in oil and gas, in agriculture, in logistics and transportation, in marine engineering, in fisheries. Even in the northern belt, for example, of Ondo State, has probably the nation's biggest belt of granite and marble and gemstones, including limestones. We don't have any mining industry coming from anywhere in the world to Ondo State because we don't have a center of excellence for mining. Our intention is to use our University of Science and Tech in the south to develop skills that are relevant to marine engineering, fisheries, logistics, as well as transportation and oil and gas. In the north, we have a polytechnic that we intend to upgrade into another University of Science and Tech so that it can focus on issues of mining engineering, agricultural engineering, and food technology because of the abundance of agricultural capacity as well as mining opportunities in that area. So we're going to rejig our educational system and our institutions to produce the right skills for jobs, because today there are no jobs, only customers. So those who have jobs must have the right skills without prejudice to those who need tertiary education, and we've said we will provide student loans. That is a fundamental aspect of educational transformation, to ensure that funding would not be a challenge to those who have the capacity, particularly if they're going to take courses in sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, and agriculture. And we intend to do that expeditiously.
All right, Mr. Delegate, I'll take you up on something that the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has just said, or he said yesterday in regards to the Ondo election. In his words, and I quote, he says, having lost Edo State, everything will now be done not to lose Ondo State, because that will mean the end of the APC. And he went on to say that pressure is on security agencies and INEC to probably bow to pressures and probably sway allegiance towards the APC. Although the APC have actually reported this particular claim, calling it reckless. What's your take about this?
Look, the issue of APC, ADC is kettle calling pots black. There are two sides of the same coin. They are the ones that they challenge for this country. They are the ones that have held us at the jugular. They are the ones that have put their knees on the neck of our people to ensure that we are unable to breathe. And I'm saying that I do not know about Edo State, but I know about Ondo State. And I think the revolution will start here. Our people will breathe. Our people are tired of political, mercenaries. People are tired of money politics, thuggery in politics, because this has been the narrative for many elections in our country. For once, I think people are listening that indeed there has been no result in terms of economic development for them. I respect Governor Wike, I respect my governor, and I think as much as possible, whatever they say, I'm not their spokesperson. All I can say is that the revolution has started. Our people want to vote for capacity, and they've done it in Edo State. They want to vote for competence, economic transformation, and that is it. And we've told them, if you do not do that, and you continue to allow these two parties to emasculate you, to force you to do that which does not have any value on your life, then you're going to be responsible. You're going to live with the consequences.
You know, 2020 has been such a year of unexpected things. To say the least, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed a lot of things, has changed the way that we see life for the forthcoming future. If we look at Ondo State and their relationship with COVID-19, as it stands, you have around 1,620 positive cases. How confident have you been in the current administration's treatment of COVID-19 so far? And do you think that should you become governor come October 10th, should you be the elected winner, would you do anything different in terms of tackling COVID-19 in Ondo State?
Well, this may surprise you, but we must give kudos to the governor of Ondo State and the government of Ondo State for their effort in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. And also kudos to all the governors, even the federal government, because this came like something from the blues. Nobody was prepared, and you could see the amount of public and private sector response in terms of support. And I give also kudos to the government of Ondo State for their efforts so far in ensuring that our situation does not get worse than it is. I think any government whatsoever, and when we get into government, what will then become important is to provide as many testing opportunities as possible. Because without testing, you cannot identify those who are carrying it and are not demonstrating the symptoms. And as long as you have people with COVID tendency without the symptoms being visible, the possibility of infection and spread becomes very strong. So I think the effort so far in terms of COVID can only be enhanced by increased public enlightenment, provision of water, because if you ask us to wash water every 20 minutes, how do we wash it without water? Akure has no pipe-borne water. This is the capital of an oil-producing state. I live in Akure. I have a home here for the last 12 years. I buy water every week. That is crime. How do we have a situation where we do not have water? Even before COVID-19, this is the basic situation that must be provided for our people. So we need government, and if we come in, we will speed up the possibility of having water in our homes, ensuring there's broadband and investment in electricity support.
Mr. Adelegan, before we go quickly, the health workers in Ondo State might beg to differ because well over 400 of them have actually contracted COVID-19, and they've actually told the government they haven't done enough to protect them. And although you say the government has done quite enough in the tackling of COVID-19. Just put it in. What's your thought about that?
Even America, United Kingdom, with all the best intentions, with all the best facilities, people are dying in their thousands.
Thank you very much for your time.
COVID-19 is not something that we cannot judge anybody globally. We must only continue to pray that God will help us abate it and then provide the basics for
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time there. That was Prince Dapo Adelegan, who is the Ondo State gubernatorial candidate for the African Democratic Congress. Thank you for joining us.